Okay, so for today's topic, we will be having an introduction or basically a refresher of cytology, the organelles within it, and other introductory concepts that is very useful in studying histology. Okay, so again, our main goal for Beta 105 or microscopic anatomy is to be very familiar with these four main types of tissues, no? So at the end of the semester, our goal is to um, be able to identify and classify these four main types of tissue. But before we can go into what the types of tissues are, let's just make it clear what's the difference between histology and organology. So for the first part of your microscopic anatomy or VETA 105, again, we will be talking about the four major types of tissue, while for the VETA 106 or next semester, after you have passed this current course, we will be talking about organology, wherein we will determine where these different types of tissues are located in each of these different organs. Okay? So, as an analogy, it's as if in histology we will make sure to learn about the different features and characteristics of, for example, the building materials of your organs, such as if you have a house. Then for histology, we will master how a brick looks like, how cement looks like, or glass or whatever. And then when we go to organology or in the studying of the actual different microscopic parts of the organ, these organs are like your rooms. So for example, here in the bedroom, you can see that in the window area or in the organ layer A, there's actually glass material or tissue A. Okay? So that's the difference between histology and organology. And hopefully during 105, we will be very expert with the different types of tissues or the building blocks so that when we go to organology, we will have an easier time to identify different parts and describe which specific tissues make up the specific layers. Okay? So again, in these images, you can see that it is zoomed in into each specific type of tissue, while in this other side, you will see the actual organ. And you can see at this layer is epithelial tissue, this layer it's connective tissue, this layer it's muscle tissue, etc. So again, for this semester, we will not be too particular about the names of the layers of the organs itself, but we will be mastering how it looks like per type of tissue. So we will be using the individual approach first and then try to see how they look like under the microscope so that later when we study the organs, we will know which layer, outer layer, inner layer, etc. is composed of which tissue. Okay? So again, why is histology important? Because first, histology basically is the study of tissues, histo, and in order to see the different parts of the tissue, you will need a tool, which is your microscope, right? Because you will not be able to see the different microscopic structures because again they're microscopic, they're very small, no, so you cannot see them with the naked eye. Parts of the tissue or organs which is readily seen by the naked eye is usually studied under gross anatomy. Okay, anyway, if the gross anatomy is important, then why is the microscopic feature important? First, sometimes injuries, when we become clinicians, injuries are only seen microscopically. No, they are not yet reflected um, in the gross level. Okay? So, how are we able to determine if we have abnormalities in the microscopic level? So, we need to study and master histology. So we will need to determine the normal cell structures and the differences in the cell structures depending on the cellular function. So a key thing to remember in histology is that the morphology reflects the cellular or tissue's function, no? So they go hand in hand and they are not separable from one another, which means anatomy and physiology is uh, two faces of the same coin. Tama? Okay? And then, if we understand how it should look like, we will know if there's something wrong with it. And if we are familiar, if there's something wrong with it, then we can recognize if there's actually an ongoing disease process which may or may not be readily seen grossly. Okay? So again, histology is very important because it sets the normal and the threshold of your knowledge regarding microscopic anatomy. Okay, and hopefully in your um, histopath subject later on in your um, pathology courses, you'll be able to determine the abnormalities. Okay, so before we move on, let's try to review again the different types of microscope. No, so I'm sure a lot of you, or since we've already discussed, you've already finished the first half of your semester, you are very familiar with this one, the light microscope. So the light microscope basically functions using observable light, no? In this case, the structures seen under the light microscope would be usually this one. Um, you would usually see either um, purple and pink colored structures or stained tissues. Okay. Later on, we'll talk about the different types of staining. Okay. Anyway, the light microscope is the most common microscope, and maybe 90% of the time, when you become veterinarians, clinicians, or histopathologists in the future, you will be encountering or you will be using this type of microscope. Okay, so light microscope. Then, but of course, we also have your electron microscope. So for today and maybe for the first half of the semester, you're already familiar with the electron microscope. And what I want you to appreciate is the electron microscope is a very complicated, expensive, and big equipment such that it needs a whole table office setup in order to be uh, equipped to work. Okay? So it's complicated like that because instead of just using ordinary light to illuminate or to show the structures under the microscope, it needs the power of lasers and electrons, no, coming from its name. So we have two types of electron microscopes. We have the transmission and the scanning electron microscope. So the difference between the two is, as you can see with the samples here of how structures would look like, under the electron microscope, we have this 2D structure, black and white, usually. This would be, which organelle is this? Right? This is our favorite organelle, our mitochondria. So it looks like what? Para siyang coloring book, di ba? Black and white, 2D. So, usually if you see 2D and black and white pictures of organelles under the microscope, it gives you an idea that first, since it's an organelle, this structure is so small because it's like a even zoomed in component of the cell. So imagine, di ba? In the light microscope, on the other hand, the usual thing that we can discern would be up to the level of the cell. But later we'll be discussing that this is not always the case. But if you want a very clear and more robust visualization of the insides of the cell or other structures which are smaller than your typical cell, which is your organelles and other stuff, or even viruses, you would need electron microscope. And again, if it's 2D or it looks like a slice, no, of the organelle, it's your transmission. While for the scanning electron microscope, it looks like this, a little bit more 3D, and you are only able to capture a scan of the outside surface or whatever surface is exposed or nearest to the source of light of the microscope. Okay, so same level of zooming capability and resolution, but the structure that you may see may be different depending on which subtype of electron microscope. And for electron microscopes, actually, um, this is usually very expensive, and the preparation of the tissue sections for use in your electron microscope is very different from the sections that you are usually handling in the lab or for the light microscope. Okay? And then we also have your stereo microscope. So as you can see, the stereo microscope has only one objective, and it's basically a more advanced magnifying glass wherein the zooming capability is less than your light microscope, but it is best used for viewing 3D structures of actual specimens that may or may not be processed into thin sections, no? So usually used by this is also called as your dissecting microscope actually, because when you need to dissect very small, in this case embryo, rat embryo, in order to collect a specific section of the brain, so yan siya, usually use this. And for other parasitologists, in order to view the specific subparts of your whole um, insect or parasite specimen, so you would use the stereo or dissecting microscope. Who else uses this microscope? Watch repair mechanics, no? So they would also use this anything that needs a closer view of a 3D object, no? So for stereo microscope, you don't usually need to prepare your sections in very thin sections. Okay? Hindi na kailangan ng thin. But for the other microscopes, including this one, which is your fluorescence microscope, you would need sections or thin segments or slices of your tissue. Okay? For the fluorescence microscope, what can we observe? It seems like there is more leeway in the number of colors that we can observe. This is so because the fluorescence microscope uses fluorescence light, and the fluorescence light has a larger spectrum than your normal light microscope. Okay, so for the fluorescence microscope, it is mainly used by researchers, especially those who want to answer a lot of questions such as which specific type of cell contains this specific type of structure or protein or whatever. And they can answer that by specifically assigning a specific color, a fluorescent color, to a specific protein. For example, the color blue specifically stains cell A's nucleus, while the color red specifically stains protein A. So in this photo, we can say that, these cells are cell A and they contain protein A or something like that. Okay? Again, the more colors that you see, and if the background is black, most likely that image was taken or seen under the fluorescence microscope. Anyway, in general, I just want you guys to appreciate that there's a lot of ways wherein we can appreciate or see microscopic anatomy or microscopic structures because we have different microscopes. And depending on the specific question or structure that we want to see, we would have to use different microscopes. But again, for majority of for majority of the things that you will observe when doing histology or histopathology, the light microscope is usually enough. Okay? Next, why do we need to stay, no? As I said earlier with the different microscopes, um, apparently, I'm not sure if all of you know this. For majority of the slides that you have been examining during the first half of the semester, they are all stained. Okay? If we are not going to stain these tissues, they will just look like this, transparent slivers of tissues. So parang siyang ganito, very refractile, no? Almost like glass or like imagine if you I don't know if you did this when you were young, when you would put glue on the palm of your hands, then let it dry, then peel it off. It would look like that, no? So in order to better appreciate the specific parts of the tissue, we would need to stain. And the most routine stain that we almost always use, that's why it's called routine, is the H&E or hematoxylin and eosin. So, majority of the slides that you will be encountering and viewing during your study of microscopic anatomy would usually be stained using H&E. Hematoxylin and eosin, this stain is usually hematoxylin will give off the bluish color, while eosin will give off the pinkish color. And then other subparts of the cell will have a combination of the bluish pink color, depending on their chemical characteristic. Okay? For hematoxylin, it usually stains the purple, the nuclei, no? Because the hematoxylin is a basic, it sticks to the acidic part of the cell. So the nucleus has nucleic acids, diba? So it will stick there. While the eosin will usually stick to the basic parts of the cell, more of the protein part, the cytoplasm. Okay? Um, Aside from H&E, we also have other stains, such as your other stains, aka special stains. Okay? So if it's not H&E, it's usually a kind of special stain. We have your PAS or periodic acid shift stain, which basically selectively stains carbohydrates or glycogen. And this is usually used in the liver, wherein the usual manifestation of an injury or a disease or something abnormal would be the accumulation of excess glycogen. Okay, so in this case, PAS would stain this glycogen with purplish reddish fuchsia color. And then we would also have your, for example, right Gemsa is another example which selectively stains this one. Ano kaya to, guys? Any guesses? So yan siya ay, this would be parasites within your RBCs. So the right Gemsa stain has been developed to selectively stain, I think, parasites in blood cells. Okay? And then we also have Mason's trichrome, another one of those commonly used special stain, wherein it's usually used to stain collagen fibers blue. Okay, so this is important because in histology or in histopathology, the presence of more than the usual amount of collagen fibers usually implies that an injury happened either recently or depending on the amount, if it's a lot, maybe chronically or a long time before. Okay, so it's really an important tool, especially if you want to focus on the determine the level of fibrosis. What else in wound healing studies? Wherein you would have sections of the skin. You can use Mason's trichrome to effectively delineate specifically the collagen fibers. And in this time, the more collagen fibers there is, the more organized they are. After wound, during the healing, it means the healing is um, ongoing or very good or not. So it depends on that. Okay. What else? We also have your reticulin stain. These reticulin stain are these black structures here. We will talk more about this when we go into the connective tissue. But what I'd like to emphasize here is that this reticulin stain is basically a stain which stains your reticular fibers black. And one use of this is in the liver. When you want to know if the liver has hyperplasia, so this one is normal if it's hyperplasia or neoplasia. So if you don't stain it, if you just stain it with H&E, then you will not be able to visualize these black fibers. So you won't really be able to tell, well, if there's some abnormality. But if you stain the fibers, you can see that, oh, in the normal slide, there's only one cell layer thick cords or rows of hepatocytes, and they are very organized. While in hyperplasia, these cells become slightly hypertrophied because you can see that the spaces in between the black staining fibers have become bigger. What else? The organization is still there, but somewhat a little bit slightly disorganized. While in neoplastic sections of the liver, you can see that the reticular fibers or these fibers which form the normal framework of these cells have either become so irregular or completely disappeared. Okay, so you can see now multiple layers of cells are clumped together and they are not even supported by reticular fibers. So it shows that the normal structure has been destroyed due to the neoplastic nature of cells, which is characterized by, yes, by uncontrollable division or dividing. So the cells are dividing and dividing and dividing, and there is no time for the normal architecture of the tissue for the framework of reticular fibers to form. Okay, so again, it's another way to prove that special stains are good. No? Okay, now let's move to the organelles. No, so I'm sure you've already discussed with Doc Belia or the first half of the semester the different organelles, no? And for sure you have been introduced to their pictures under the electron microscope. So this time let's try to appreciate, since what I said earlier, 90% of the time you will be using the light microscope in viewing the cell. So let's appreciate the subparts of the cell, whatever is still able to show itself under the light microscope. So the main things that's usually still visible under the light microscope would be the cell membrane, the cytoplasm, and the nucleus. And depending on the type of the cell, the subparts of the nucleus, such as the nuclear membrane, the nucleolus, and the chromatin, the two types, the heterochromatin and the euchromatin, may also be seen. Okay, so again, it depends on the cell because some cells are smaller and some cells are bigger. So the bigger the cell, usually the more parts are still vis visible under the light microscope. Okay, so for example, the cell membrane. In this photo, this is taken under the electron microscope. That's why we can still see the really specific subparts such as the bilayer, the intercellular space, the pores, etc. But under the light microscope, we can just only see it as a faint dark lines, and sometimes you cannot even see it. Okay? What about this structure? This structure, these dots. Again, under the electron microscope, they look like this. So this is actually your ribosomes in the rough endoplasmic reticulum, which makes sense, no? The ribosomes are what makes the rough endoplasmic reticulum rough, okay? Under the light microscope, if it is visible, it's not usually visible. It is usually visible in cells which, what? Produce a lot of, what do ribosomes make? Yes, they make protein. So in cells that are making a lot of proteins, such as enzymes or secretions, such as your glands, you will tend to see dark staining structures near your nuclei. So this one. See? So apparently, this dark staining area of the cytoplasm, which is like darker than the rest of the cytoplasm, but still less dark than the nucleus, this is actually, you can assume that this is the rough endoplasmic reticulum. But again, this is not the best way to specify that indeed it is RER, but there are still better ways. No, you can use a specific protein to mark the RER and use fluorescence microscopy or immunohistochemistry if you want to be very certain about it. But if you see structures like this, we can say or we can suggest that since it's the cell is a part of a gland which produces protein and then it has this dark structure, maybe it's the rough endoplasmic reticulum. What about this one? This is basically the endoplasmic reticulum, but this time it does not have the ribosome. So it's the smooth endoplasmic reticulum. So for the smooth endoplasmic reticulum, since there are no ribosomes, reference say or argue that they would be, instead of being a dark area of the cytoplasm, it is now lighter part of your cytoplasm. And it will usually be seen where? What does the smooth endoplasmic reticulum produce? Yes, lipids, no? So if the tissue produces a lot of lipids, then most likely it would have the cells which comprise that tissue would have a lot of smooth endoplasmic reticulum. Okay? What about this one? This is your, you remember what this is? This is your Golgi or Golgi apparatus, of course. If you see names in histology, anatomy, or whatever that is in capital letter, it is almost always named after the person who first described it. So this one is, of course, Golgi. So Mr. Golgi named this. And what does the Golgi apparatus do? It is basically what? The sorting and packing and sorting center of your cell. So again, it is usually seen in cells which produce a lot of things that need to be packed and sorted so that it can be secreted outside. Okay? So one good example would be your goblet cell or your mucus cell that is usually seen in tissues that secrete stuff. And apparently, it's usually seen located in between the nucleus and the um, secretion. Okay, so this part. So this would be the area where there is Golgi apparatus. Again, you're just assuming this, and there are better ways to specifically label the Golgi apparatus. What about this one? So this is your favorite organelle, of course. This is our mitochondrion. Di ba? Ang cute. So the mitochondrion, if singular mitochondria, if it's a lot, is another cool organelle because out of all the organelles, this one, if there's a lot of mitochondria in the tissue or the cell, it usually manifests itself as color brown. So, given this information, which type of tissue among the four major types of tissue do you think has a brownish color grossly? For those who are taking gross anatomy, maybe you will have an idea. So yes, no, it would be your muscle tissue. And why does the muscle tissue, why do you think it needs to have a lot of mitochondria? Because it needs, yes, it needs power, a lot of power, because the muscle cells always need to contract and relax in order to do its function. Galing, di ba? Again, this is your form or morphology reflecting its function. Okay? What else? Oh, what about this? My gosh. These are not organelles anymore, but they are still within the cells. So what do we call them? They are not normally seen there, but sometimes if there's something wrong or something that is not usually normal, they are being produced by the cell. But they are not organella. So they are your inclusion bodies. They are also included within the cells, but they are not organelles. So for example, here in your normal liver, and this is your abnormal liver, you would have your these brown spots. This would be your hemosiderin in the Kupffer cell of your liver, while in the hepatocyte, you would have your lipofuscin. So both of these are inclusion bodies. And what's the problem with this one? So this is most likely HN is stained. We can see that both lipofuscin and hemosiderin are stained brown, even if they're not the same thing. So what can we do? Yes, we can use another stain, such as your Prussian blue stain, wherein only the hemosiderin will take up the blue stain, which effectively, ano, differentiates it from the lipofuscin. Diba? Again, the power of special stain. What else? Some staining will readily identify fat or excess fat within the stain. Not only excess fat, but fat in general. So, in tissues wherein there should not be excess fat, and then you see these red blobs because it was stained with oil red O, we can say that there is an accumulation of fat because in this stain, the fat component of the tissue takes up the red color. Okay? Again, produced by the cell but not all the time. So sometimes included siya, sometimes not. Again, they are not organelles, but they are still seen within the cells. Okay? What else? Oh, what's this? This is actually sections of the skin. And what's the difference between, oh, this is your light skin and this is your dark skin? So, this one, the brown looking cells here actually have a lot of melanin as inclusion bodies within their cytoplasm. So again, It is a part, it is still located within the cell, and some cells would not have it while others would have it. Okay? So, depending on the current function that that specific cell is currently doing. Okay? Melanin. Okay, what about this? Still, these are your inclusion bodies. Yes, these are your glycogen granules. A and B are taken from the same tissue sections, but A is stained with a routine H and E, while B is stained with already studied it PAS, no? So again, your glycogen granules, they don't really absorb either hematoxylin or eosin, no? But it absorbs PAS stain. That's why you will see pink structures in PAS stained slides containing glycogen granules, okay? H&E and PAS. Oh, what about this one? Ano naman to? What's this? Now, let's move on to what other variations of cellular form can we see under the microscope? We would have your, what's this? Of course, we're experts na about this one. We can actually see mitotic figures, aka cells undergoing mitosis. Imagine, no? This mitosis actually happens very, very fast, no? And I'm sure you've already seen this using the onion root slide sections. So it's the same banana, no? But in the animal slides, you can also see them. And the difference is you wouldn't see very well delineated cell walls because animal cells don't have cell walls, right? So you will just be able to see different stages of the mitosis. So whatever stage it is, such as anaphase, prophase, or metaphase, so yan nasa gitna lang, here, 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 they're all called mitotic figures, right? And as a histologist, you will not be required to identify which specific stage they are in, no? As long as you are able to tell that they are actually cells that are currently undergoing division or were undergoing division when they were fixed or frozen in time, quote unquote, using formalin. Okay? So, these mitotic figures, they are usually not seen in most tissues except for places where there is a need to continuously replace cells. So, these are areas of the body which would have your stem cells, right? Or areas of your body wherein there is a lot of replacement of cells because it is readily exposed to mechanical forces which would render exposed cells dead and then they will need to be replaced, such as in this photo, these are actually the crypts of your intestinal villi. Okay, so in this case, if you see mitotic figures, it maybe most of the time it is normal. So yan. Again, normal mitotic figures would basically correspond with the normal morphology of dividing cells. But what if you see atypical mitotic figures or weird looking, weird shaped dividing cells? So these atypical mitotic figures are usually hallmarks of, yes, cancerous cells. Cells that are uncontrollably dividing and dividing, di ba? Because imagine they're not yet done with one set of division, but they will repeat the process, repeat and repeat. That's why I know they become crazy. And if instead of just, for example, in the metaphase, it should be just one line like this. There will be three lines, okay? So that would be your atypical mitotic figures. So these atypical mitotic figures are especially very useful when you are trying to grade or determine if a tumor is malignant or not, and if it's malignant, how malignant it is, and what is the prognosis or the chance of this animal of surviving despite the cancer or the tumor that it has. Again, this will be discussed more when you go to your histopath course. Okay. What else? Oh, what about this one? So earlier we were talking about mitosis. This time, let's go to meiosis. Yes, you've already seen this in the first part, but I just want to remind you. So what's this one? This is actually one section of your Seminiferous tubule. Yes. And what can we say about the wall of the seminiferous tubules? The cells are different looking. Diba? There's a variety of size and shape. And this is so because, they are actually at different stage of your meiosis cycle, di ba? Again, it makes sense, no? They would have different names because they have different shapes and sizes and because they are found at the different stage of your meiosis. Okay? For the male version, you can usually see a lot of them, but for the female meiosis, it's not actually captured in sections of the ovary, but we will be discussing more about that in Beta 106. But I just want you guys to appreciate that actually you were able to see other versions of cells that are in mid division. May it be meiotically or meiosisically. Are those words? I don't know. But anyway, you get the gist, okay? Meiosis or mitosis both can actually be seen or caught in a tissue section. Okay? So that's all for the introduction of the cellular components as well as histology. Please do not forget to um, sign or accomplish the attendance form for today's meeting. Thank you.